Okay, hello and welcome to everybody. My name is Nick Fannin. I'm the head of Bright Red Triangle at Edinburgh Napier University, which is our hub for innovation and enterprise practice. Delighted to welcome you all to this event. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Edinburgh Napier University and why we are so happy that you are able to be here and to share your knowledge and experiences with us. So let me just talk a little bit about Edinburgh Napier. This place where you are is a university that was founded in 1964 and originally was a technical college and has grown to be the modern university that you see today. We are professional, ambitious, innovative and inclusive, and we are a very practical university. We're based in Scotland. You found it here, the most beautiful country in the world. And we're in Edinburgh, which has an amazing tradition of innovation. There's a lot of exciting things happen in Edinburgh in terms of innovation and creativity. And that sort of sits very well with us. We are based across 3 campuses. You're at the Merkston campus here supporting 6 schools. The School of Computing, the School of Engineering and the Built Environment, and the School of Arts and Creative Industries are based on this campus. Our Sighthill campus across the city is home to the School of Applied Sciences and the School of Health and Social Care, and our business school is just a little bit further up the road from here. There's a little bit about the university strategy. I'm not going to dwell on all of these slides, but hopefully you'll be able to share them afterwards and be able to absorb some of the information that's in here. But one of the key pillars of our strategy is to build innovation, enterprise and citizenship across our students, our staff and our alumni. We're a very international university. We've got over 19,000 students from more than 130 countries. There's 13,500 students on this campus and 6,000 studying at partner universities across the world and online. And we're not just about what happens in the lecture theatre. As I said, we're a very practical and applied university, and we're encouraging our students to get involved with the outside world on real projects while they're studying and hopefully beyond. A lot of that comes is about industry-related projects, and we encourage our students to work in the outside world in industry across a variety of sectors. And we're very keen on supporting entrepreneurship, which is very specifically the bit that I'm kind of interested in. We have 3 key areas that we focus our research, and I think this might be of interest to you. One is on well-being, across our schools of health and social care and applied sciences. There are a number of programs that are looking to develop research in the fields of well-being. That ties in with our School of Computing and, of course, the Information Society, and also around sustainable communities, which takes in our engineering and built environment, where we do very specifically work on sustainable construction, timber research, and transport innovation. So working together with the business school as well, there's some really interesting projects happening here. For instance, as I said, the UK timber and construction industry are big partners, and we work with some very interesting and award-winning projects looking at off-site construction and new and innovative manufacturing techniques. We have some interesting projects going on around bioscience space. There's some interesting projects where we're looking at renewable products coming from, or alternatives to plastic coming from seaweed, as well as things like eggshell waste. So there's all sorts of good stuff here which might be of interest, and if you're wanting to talk to us about it later, please do. As I said, we've got lots of education going on across international boundaries and around the world. And we're building a very large global network of alumni, and hopefully there's an opportunity to expand that. Here's a little bit about Bright Red Triangle and the way that innovation and enterprise works at Edinburgh Napier. There's a variety of activity going on. Bright Red Triangle is the little bit that I'm involved in, which is the extracurricular space where we support our students and graduates to set up new businesses and to get their projects off the ground. We work very closely with the business community. There's opportunities for research in the work that we do and that our colleagues in the business school do. And of course that informs our teaching. We have an entrepreneurship teaching team within the business school, along with other modules which are looking at or supporting sustainable business models and so on. We're the fun bit. So we have our student business incubators here. We provide free office space, business advice, mentoring to all students and all graduates without time limit who want to set up a business, whether that is a straightforward for-profit business or a social business. We also provide training programs, advice, mentoring, and other forms of support, including some financial assistance. Our mission is to develop the ideas and the people that are coming through our incubators so that they can have either or both of a commercial and a social impact. We want to be known as a leading institution in Scotland for innovation and enterprise, but there is a focus on entrepreneurship as a force for good. Why we do it is partly because it's in the strategy, but also because we believe that anybody going out into the wide world today needs these skills, whether they are going to be entrepreneurial in their own business, entrepreneurial in somebody else's business, or just trying to get a community project or a socially minded project off the ground. So there's 3 pathways that we recognise for our students going through the university. And we have areas or areas of activity and opportunities for our students in each of these areas. As I said, we provide free office space in our incubators. We usually see between 40 and 50 new startups emerging from those spaces each year. We've now assisted over 500 businesses to start up since we opened the first incubator at the end of 2004. And there's about 180 that are still active of those. Thousands of students have been through the programs that we run. There's always around about 50 odd students who are developing ideas or at some stage in the development process. And I think the great thing about what we offer is that they are in a space, a physical space, where they benefit from people at all sorts of different ages and stages. We are open to our alumni without time limit, so people can come back 10, 20 years later and share their skills and experience. We don't charge for this, but we do ask people to participate in the classroom, which creates an interesting learning opportunity for the students that we're trying to inspire. We also run a student consultancy service where we recruit and train students to do work with local organisations. It's an opportunity for our students to get a little bit of experience while they're still studying, and also to get paid, which helps them through their university experience. And then finally we have a third pathway which we call Changing Perceptions, and it's a workshop series designed to encourage our students and graduates to work with organisations in the third sector, public sector, local community groups and so forth. And the idea is that we can bring our students together with these groups to look at challenges together and to see if we can encourage the students to take on some ownership of those challenges and to try and find solutions. We encourage the work that comes out of these workshops into the incubator so that we can help them further develop those ideas. And we're trying to light some fires across the university, trying to encourage our students to think differently and to capture opportunity. We've got a couple of training programs. We work closely with our sustainable construction people, with our product designers, providing them with opportunities while they're studying. And all of that is designed to be interactive and fun, but hopefully also to provide opportunities for the outside world to benefit from the work that they do. So really what we're looking for is for you guys to present us with some opportunities where we might be able to collaborate together, and I'd be interested to having a chat with you if you've got something that's burning away with you. That's all I've got to say about Napier. Hopefully that gives you a flavour of what we're about and why we're glad that you're here. I'm going to pass you over to Colin now, who's going to kick us off. Yeah. Thanks, Colin.
And thank you to all of you who've come along today. I have to say it's a real pleasure to be here in Napier University. I'm one of those individuals who graduated here, actually, and I'm part of Bright Red Triangle because they make this space available. And this event is a result of one of the things that Nick has been trying to do, to provide a space where businesses can come into the university in Scotland, but also, importantly, internationally. Any of you who know me know that what I'm interested in is building bridges and building connections, and I think this is an example of exactly what it is we're trying to do. So I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to thank Napier University for this space. I'd also like to thank Senscott and Community Enterprise for supporting us to make this happen, and also our other speakers from Scotland for coming along to share their experience. So basically what I want to say today is to give you a bit of a context about why we're here today and why our friends from Vietnam have come to Scotland. So we're going to have some presentations from, first of all, actually, there's a little change in the order. First of all, I'll invite Aidan to come up and talk about the history of social enterprise in the last 20 odd years as to where we are now, and then Professor Than will give us a presentation about their thinking. And I think there's real opportunities for us to reciprocate, that tricky word to say, and for us to share our experience of the last 20 years, but also for us to listen to the Vietnamese and their approach, which I think is very interesting and offers opportunities for ourselves. The intention is that we'll have a break around 3 o'clock and another couple of speakers, and then if we've got time we'll have a question and answer session, but we want this to be a beginning of a conversation, not just a one-off event. So as Nick said, there's opportunities here, but there's also opportunities to collaborate with our colleagues in Vietnam, and then we hope to have the opportunity to take a picture. So why are we here? As Josiah pointed out, this is now out of date, but this basically tells us that we are currently in a situation where we are challenged with all sorts of difficulties at a planetary scale. So for prehistory until 2008, we were under 300 parts per million for carbon dioxide, and that is now shooting up. We also have today the report of the IPCC, which tells us that we are in danger of passing the limit of 1.5 degrees C by 2040, and we need to really take things seriously. So in other words, business as usual is not an option. We have to look for different innovative ways to work in harmony with our planet. And I think that is very pertinent in terms of the work that we've been doing with Vietnam and the opportunity to use what is called UNESCO Biosphere Reserves as a learning opportunity to live more gently on the earth. So Assist Social Capital got involved in UNESCO Biosphere Reserves in 2011, and we realised that in order to deliver social benefit and economic development, social enterprises provided a really good opportunity. And what we did is we put together with some partners from other biosphere reserves an experience of how to translate what has happened in Scotland over the last 20 years into a framework which could then be used by the global network of biosphere reserves. There are 668, I believe, biosphere reserves in 122 countries, and we got the support of the Scottish Government to do this. And John Swinney was a real advocate of the balance between business and nature, and he gave a foreword to the framework which some of you have around here. That was launched in Canada in 2013 at the same time as the Social Enterprise and Biosphere Reserve Working Group in order to take things forward. The connection with Vietnam came through work that I did, having met Thuyen, who's here with us from CAPBA, and we got funded by UNESCO Jakarta to deliver a case study on social enterprise and social capital within CAPBA Biosphere Reserve. Because we had found that there was an overlap between the thinking in Vietnam, which is a systems thinking approach, and this whole idea of social capital, building connectivity, and using social enterprise to deliver sustainable development, because biosphere reserves are centres of sustainable development and living laboratories. In 2015, the working group made a response to the 10-year action plan for the UNESCO World Network of Biosphere Reserves. Thuyen, as a member of that working group, came and joined us and made a response to the Global Committee for the strategy towards 2025. And I have to say I'm very proud of the fact that that work, that collaborative work, led to social enterprise being introduced in a number of areas, specifically these two, 2.3 and C6, where biosphere reserves act as models to explore and establish innovative approaches that foster resilience of communities and opportunities for youth through livelihood, diversification, green business, and social enterprise. This is the first time that that was introduced into the global strategy for biosphere reserves, and also deeper involvement. And this is about ownership of economic development within communities and biosphere reserves as a platform for social enterprises and green businesses. That led on to us realizing that there was a dearth of information about businesses within biosphere reserves, so we developed a platform in order to collect the socio-economic indicators of the social enterprises within biosphere reserves, and that's called OASIS, which stands for Opening Access to Sustainable Independent Income Streams. And we launched that at the Global Conference of Biosphere Reserves in Peru, Lima, in 2016. And my colleague over there, who's just walking to the back, is Tabby. She's the coordinator for OASIS. And our intention is to raise awareness of this and to aggregate the impact of these organizations so that they can find new markets, collaborate and learn from each other, and also raise investment. And that's where CAPBA is. And we're pleased to say that they are one of the active organizations on the Biosphere platform. In 2018, we took the data that we were collecting and we produced the first biennial report, which we hope to be a rich source of data for policy development of supporting social enterprises and biosphere reserves. And what we were able to show that at that time within the businesses that were on the platform, they were investing locally $11 million into their local economies. Now, you have to realize that most of these places are rural, they are hotspots of biodiversity, and they are at extreme risk of losing their communities and also losing their biodiversity. So social enterprises were able to provide employment opportunities and also deliver against the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is a picture of from CAPBA Island. It's a very, very beautiful place. It's becoming very busy with visitors. And it is a place where this is, I think, shows the opportunity for social entrepreneurs and social enterprises that they can work anywhere in Scotland, in Vietnam, in CAPBA. And CAPBA is also very famous for the fact that it is the golden, what is it? Triangle. Yes. And it's very endangered, and the Biosphere Reserve began out of the protection of the langur, the golden langur, which they have begun to be able to bring back. And then also in November 2016, I had the opportunity to visit Vin City, where the National Programme for Biosphere Reserves was launched, and I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Thang at that event. And I believe that we're going to hear from Dr. Thang about how they are going to take that forward. And that has brought them to Scotland because they have heard that Scotland is demonstrating that social enterprise is something of value. They've come here to listen to our experiences and to share their experience of what they've been doing in the most recent years. So I thank you for coming. I hope that you enjoy your stay, and I hope that you learn a lot from us. And so we will continue this conversation. And now I'm going to ask my colleague Aidan to come and join us. And I have to say, I'm proud of this as well, because I've been involved in social enterprise for the last 20 years as well. And it's good to have the opportunity to revisit where we were at with these things. And Aidan is somebody who has played a key role in making all of this happen.
Thanks for asking me along to speak. I'm going to try, and Colin's asked me to try and give you an overview of the social enterprise situation in Scotland over the last 20 years. Social enterprise in Scotland didn't begin 20 years ago, by the way. It goes back far longer than that, of course. But I suppose the current incarnation is the terminology social enterprise, and that is what has happened in these last 2 decades. It's what I'm going to try and cover in 10 minutes. How do I switch the thing? So I'm going to try and give you about three kind of stories, or three approaches to this. One is fairly is really about our own organisation, SenScot, and our kind of journey over the last 20 years. The other is really about working with other organisations to try and support social enterprise and its development in Scotland. And the third is really about charting the beginning really of government support and the kind of the progressions that has made over the last decade, really. So our organisation, SenScot, began in 1999, so we're coming up for our 20th anniversary next spring, which you're all very happy to join us if you're in this country. And these are the three activities that we agreed at the outset of the organisation. And the main thing, not that they are particularly new or innovative or anything like that, but I suppose the one interesting fact is they remain the three same core activities we have today. So that has been fairly consistent over the last 2 decades. So if I went back, Colin, how did I do that? Yeah. So that's what we start off trying to do. And I'm going to try and take you through the wee stages of this, of what we're trying to do. So it was, where social enterprise itself was not new, the term was new, okay? And really for people from Vietnam, just to let you know, this coincided with the Scottish Parliament, us getting our own Parliament again in 1999. And this, the support for social enterprise was, or became and is still, a devolved responsibility. So we were always dealing with the Parliament in Scotland, not the UK Parliament in London. So all that kind of tied, and the timing was kind of opportune for us all. So looking at those three activities, the first two we set about trying to, I mean, there's lots of social enterprises around, there's lots of organisations that did not realise or did not see themselves or call themselves social enterprises. So it was, the first early years were really about us trying to go about and make connections with organisations in different parts of Scotland. And you'll see that we started in 1999, and in 2004 we were beginning to start our first social enterprise networks. And our key man in those days was Colin at the back. He got the networks up and running. So it took 5 years going around the country, going to meetings on Tuesday night in small towns with about 4 people turning up, trying to get some traction and get some engagement with people. So it took 5 years before we were even in a position to actually get one network to actually come together. And that was at a time when the term social enterprise was new. The government in Scotland at the time was not really using the term, and they actually saw it as a kind of splintering of this wider third sector that they saw at the time. So that was kind of the stage one in a way. And today you've got the situation just now, and it's Kim who oversees all the networks now. And there are now 17 local networks, and there's 6 thematic networks, and they are the different thematic areas that we cover. And between the two, there's about 1,300 organisations involved in the networks. The next area we kind of got involved in was really working with other organisations. So it was never a matter of SENSCOT doing it on its own. It was really trying to work with other organisations who shared the same kind of values and outlooks as we did, and also saw the need to try and build this pipeline of support. So the intention really was to try and create an organisation that could support social enterprises irrespective of the stage of their development. So if there was something for startups, if it was something for more mature organisations, if it was something for community enterprises, or if it was an organisation needing some legal support or support with procurement or things like this. So over the years, these have all been set up in Scotland in partnership with other organisations, and they're all on the go. This one merged into this one in 2007, and that is no longer active at the moment. Just recently that's stopped being active. But all of these are links. So if everyone gets the slide, Colin, you can get all the respective websites are available, and people can find out more about that. So you see that started just a wee bit in advance of the networks being started. So the first one was DTA Scotland, which is really supporting development trusts around the country. So now you've got that cluster of support organisations, and there's other organisations over and above that. There's like the Social Firm Scotland, you'll be hearing from Pauline later on. There's Community Enterprise, you'll be hearing from Douglas as well later on. But these are the ones that SENSCOT work with others to kind of help get off the ground. Around the same time, as social enterprise was becoming more popular or getting a higher profile, there were issues about how you would identify what a social enterprise stood for. So about 2011, 2012, a number of us got together and we came up with this code of practice. And there's 5 criteria. I think it's in your pack, Tabby. There's a wee green thing. It's up there. So that explains to you the 5 core criteria for the social enterprise code. And they're up there. I don't expect you to read it now. And but if there's 2 that stand out, there's one that's called the asset lock, where any profits made are wholly 100% reinvested in the organisation. And the second main one really is about a transparent and accountable legal structure and how the governance of the organisation. But that is in your pack. And currently there is about, I think there's about 750, 800 organisations have subscribed to the voluntary code. And then a couple of things I'll touch upon a wee bit later is really, it's kind of seen and accepted as the benchmark for identifying social enterprises in Scotland. The third area to talk about really, and I don't think the chap from the Scottish Government isn't here yet, so that's maybe just as well. When I said earlier, if SENSCOT got underway in 1999, we set up the first social enterprise network in 2004. The government wouldn't use the term social enterprise in a document till 2005, and there was a social enterprise strategy lasted about 5 minutes, I think, in 2005, and then for a whole lot of political reasons it kind of disappeared, and the notion resurfaced again, I think, in the 2007 election, and they got a new government in Scotland, and they introduced this thing they called the Enterprising Third Sector Action Plan. And again, that was a bit of politics. It wasn't wholly accepting the I think it felt that introducing the a distinct or discrete funding, tranche of funding for social enterprise was a bit kind of maybe controversial at the time. So they kind of played into this enterprise and third sector approach. But essentially that gave money directly to the support infrastructure for social enterprises in Scotland. And that was that, and essentially that kind of chunk of money and where that goes has remained more or less intact for the last 10 years really. So we got a 3-year kind of action plan, 2.8 to 2.11, and that was about 54 million in that first chunk. The most significant amount, I suppose, that makes it such a big figure is the Social Investment Fund, which 30 million went into that. And then that was very much for what they call a blended finance, which was half loan and half grant. And that was the idea, was to kind of introduce a culture of taking loans into the sector as opposed to being dependent on grants. Just enterprise, or I think it might be called aspiring enterprise before. Perfect timing, Will. I'm just explaining where you spend all your money. It just enterprise was a business support contract. It might be called aspiring enterprise at the time, actually. Ready for business was a way to address the public sector and to kind of educate them on how they could link in better with the third sector and social enterprise community. And the Social Entrepreneurs Fund is a fund run by First Port, which Josiah will maybe explain a bit more later on. So that got a 3-year cycle of funding, and then that was kind of continued in 2011 to 2014. And when I say the 24 million, Will, you can correct me, but I think it's about 8 million a year. And again, we got that 2014 to 2017. And that has, one of the things I'm supposed to point out in fairness is that where other government budgets have probably reduced over the years, over the last decade, the funding coming to our sector has remained pretty static. So you had that, we have this advantage, certainly in comparison with, let's say, down in England or other parts of the UK, where we've had ongoing support from the government. And you've got a whole kind of raft of different support programs going on or services available. So there's some quick milestones. I mentioned that strategy 2005, that was around for 5 minutes. You've got the action plan 2011 2014, then it comes up 2014 to 17, I guess. Scotland held the first Social Enterprise World Forum in 2008 in Edinburgh, and I think there was about 400 delegates attended that, and they had the 10th anniversary just a few weeks ago again in Edinburgh, and they had about, I think, 1,400 attendees from around the globe. We've got our code of practice, which is the wee green thing you've got there to keep you right. And then, as part of the government's support for it, there's been 2 censuses done of late. So you had one in 2015 and one in 2017, and they've committed to doing a census every other year over the life of the strategy. So we'll be able to sort of monitor the development of the sector in terms of its growth or expansion, or how it's maturing, and obviously the numbers. So you've got just numbers there. There was about 5,200 in 2015. There was about 5,600 in 2017. Although in that period, I think I'm right in saying, quite a lot of organisations dissolved as well. So you had far more starting up, but quite a few kind of disappeared for various reasons. And then, of course, the strategy we've now got a 10-year strategy in Scotland, and this is what we call a co-production between the sector itself and the government, who kind of developed or devised the strategy together. And the intention is to have three-year action plans. So you've got the action plan from 2007 to 2020, and then you'll get, let's say, 2020 to 23, whatever. So the government is committed to having 3 action plans, 3 action plans, we'll wait and see if they're committed to the money that goes with it. That has yet to be, it's out with Will's hands as well. Okay, that's about, okay, right, just a couple of things, just to finish off, opportunities and challenges as they do. On a positive note, we are probably unique in having a 10-year social enterprise strategy in this country. We have got, we have had and continue to have pretty significant government support at a national level. We're increasingly getting that at a local government level. The profile of social enterprise is, for example, Colin 15 years ago would be going around explaining what social enterprise was at every meeting he went to. You don't really have to do that as much anymore. There's wider interest from the general public as opposed to just a small niche group who are in the sector, and the sector itself is maturing and diversifying year on year. The challenges going forward is that it is a fragile sector. 75% have got a turnover of under 250,000 a year. In fact, I think the figure's about 60% are under 100,000 a year. So it's a small and fragile sector. There is an issue with this increased profile. If it could be a bit of a millstone. Is the sector overhyped in view of its fragility? Can it really deliver what the government or ministers may be expecting it to deliver? And there's an issue about the cascading down of support. The support at a national level, will that genuinely filter down to a local level? There's 32 local authorities in Scotland, and it's a small country, but you'd like to think there'd be a consistency in the level of support, no matter what part of the country you're operating in. So there's a lot to be positive about, but we've got to be realistic that there's still quite a lot of development work to go on. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aidan. I'd now like to invite Professor Than to come up and give us his presentation. Professor Than is an appointed Vice Minister in the Ministry of Public Security. He was previously Governor of Hai Phong Province, which is the 3rd largest province in Vietnam. He was also one of the founding members and first ever director of Cat Ba Biosphere Reserve. The management model of that biosphere reserve, which was established in 2004, has been replicated in all biosphere reserves in Vietnam ever since, and it has now been adopted more widely in Asia. When Governor of Hai Phong City, he co-founded the World Council on City Data and co-formulated standards on sustainable communities and smart cities, adding security, social welfare and safety elements. And he's just published a new book on smart cities, the first of its kind in Vietnam. Vice Minister, please.
Thank you. Introduced from Professor Colin Campbell. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, we are very happy to be here. That on behalf of the Vietnamese delegation that come here. Yes, we are very happy because the old delegation, the old people of the delegation, the first time has been here. That SPS here, that they come to the big event for the social enterprise that in the Edinburgh Napier University, and we are very happy and congratulations the Edinburgh Napier University with the big concerns in the research studying science and technology, just especially in the training and teaching the student on overall. Yes, very happy and good news gift from the Edinburgh Napier University. Yes, thank you. Now I come here to introduce some rewrites of the Vietnam is specialized in high functionality about the applied system thinking for the design policy for sustainable development for the social enterprise in Vietnam. That to meet the needs, the global, the fourth industrial revolution. The first I introduce system thinking. System thinking very important. Just system thinking is a way to see and talking about reality to help better understand works with the system to influence and the quality of our life. And system thinking is a new way of thinking to understand the manage the complex problems. And another thing other system thinking is the ability to see the world in the observation. So because the system all around us and in each everybody, that's very important. For in Vietnam, have the story, the civilized man and an elephant. That you see the first, that's the first man who touched his legs. It is the pillar. The second says the touch the tail that he trained. It is a rope. That's the third man who touched in the trunk. He trained. It is a huge snake. Yes. The fourth man the touch the ear. It is a big fan. Just for that went only in the symptoms, not the real elephant. So the system, around us system is the natural universe, glaciary solar system, and biological plant in the system, human body, the system in the neutral system, circulatory system, respiratory system, the social organizations, groups, association, education, the school, universities, and the department, and the other. City and the province as a system. Just the inputs, the land, the water, the force, energies, and the construction material. And the output is the greenhouse gas, air pollution, and some other. It is the changes for the city and the province and the other on the world. And the components of the natural environments, that it consists of the atmosphere, hydrosphere, that lithosphere, biosphere. How you see. And the sustainable development criteria. Yes, sustainable development. What's indicator? There's a history of the sustainable development. Sustainable development. This event for the workshop today is talking about how and we can do the social enterprise that develops to meet the needs of sustainable development. The history of sustainable development emerged in the 1970 and officials worldwide in the 1992. There are several divisions of the sustainable development. Sustainable development is a development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability to meet those future generation of the basics of the close harmony and ensure social progress. That's the protection of the environment. Yes. Aim of sustainable development. The first, economically sustainable or sustainable economic developments. Fast and safe economic development. The second, benefits and equal to the losses and costs. And the fast economic growth by harmony development. The second, social sustainable, that consists of 1, 2, 3, 4. So for example, indicator reflects the correlation between development, economic growth, and social standards. The actual social justice and human development. And the third is ecological sustainable. Just the three. The third is the development activities when implements must maintain the capacity of the ecosystem, ensuring that organisms in the system maintain adaptive capacity, resilience, and the capacity, and on protection, improvement of the quality of environments. And the third is appropriation and use the resource to safety the living needs of the present generation, but not to lose the opportunity to safety the need of the future generation. The 9 basic principles is the sustainable development. The full the presentation I give in advance. Now, that contract impact of the great transformation of the 21st century and the fourth industrial revolution. That you see the first industrial revolution, in the late 19th century, 1784. Yes, the Scotland and Edinburgh is the home of the first industrial revolution. Yes, the special is the steam engines with the separate condensers, and in the 1784, the first steam locomotive. This contributes to the important turning point for the human from the agricultural civilization to industrial civilization. Yeah, there was in the glacial that night I had been there because it's the first time I have been in the Scotland. Yeah, you see. The second industrial revolution, 2.0, yes, 1871 to 1914 in the United States, especially is automation. It's the third industrial revolution in the United States, especially the production, information technology, IT, using the internet and automation. The fourth industrial revolution, the term industrial 4.0 start in the project in the German government, and which is the first used in 2011 as the Hanover Fair in Germany. The leverage point is cybernetic, Internet of Things, AI, robust cyber system link system. The impact of the fourth industrial revolution, the impact on robots in Vietnam has the new word, robust job. Robust in Vietnam. Impact of global power balance, security, defense, safety, and primary system-wide. There's vulnerability in some others. Yeah. There are some challenges for the social welfare security in the world and in Vietnam. That income inequality in the world, according to the Oxfam reports, they lead to the diverse January 2017. Only all rich people own the access equal to that of half of the world's the poorest population. Yes, and since 2015, 1% of the world's richest people own more than that's the 99% remain population of the world. Yeah, between the 1988 and 2011, income of 10% of the poorest only increased 10 US dollar. Yes, where the income of the 1% of the richest increased 182 times. Yeah. The US is using in some information. According to the United Nations, non-traditional security, according to the United Nations, non-security security chain in the first decades of 21st century includes four issues: environment, degradation, climate change. Vietnam is one of the 5 countries on the world was serious impact of the climate change. 5 areas: economic, environment, social, and politics, and in the 6 group, and in the total 10 threats: terrorism, drug, piracy, money laundering, hacker, environment disaster, epidemic, human trafficking, illegal movement, citizen and nation extremism. So the characteristics of the non-Chinese securities and non-Chinese security are the clear, transnational, and the non-state. And the third is the global, that impact on security environment and many countries where the individual countries and potential capacity to the cope with. Yeah. That's a social enterprise, the history. Yes, Professor Colin Campbell and Professor Nick Farlin, especially Sir Aidan Spear, introduced us the more information of history of social enterprise. That I in Vietnam. In Vietnam, you see the 2014 Vietnam official add the social enterprise into the enterprise law divide. Yeah, 2015 UN Sustainable Development Summit launched a Sustainable Development Goal 2013, and the last year in Nghệ An, the hometown of the President Ho Chi Minh, Man and Biosphere Vietnam launched program social enterprise in the biosphere research. The over of social enterprise in Vietnam, there are various figures and the number of social enterprise. And the second, the study conducted by the Center of Economic and Policy Research. And the third, on average, the social enterprise in which the allocated capital is only about 1.2 billion VNDs, the Vietnamese đồng, but it creates jobs for about 15 labor, and of which 18 are the difficult situation. Yes, some the other. According to criteria for the social enterprise in Vietnam, according to the Article 10 Enterprise Laws 2014, social enterprise in Vietnam should meet the following criteria: being the registered enterprise under the enterprise law. The second, operational aims to show the social environmental issue for the benefits of the community. The third, use at least 51% of the total annual profits to reinvest in the implementing the registered social and environmental mission and the registered, that's in the law, enterprise laws of the Vietnam. Yeah. So the characteristics of the social enterprise. The first social enterprise is for the benefits of the common, and the second is a multi-perspective, the multidisciplinary and the large-scale approach. The third is a dynamic approach to sustainable development, and the fourth is of the social enterprise in the market economy, and the fifth, there can be all the alternatives option for the improving social welfare. And the sixth, yes, social enterprise is starts with and to return the social impact. Yeah. Social business in Vietnam, in some things, there is 550,000 active enterprise in Vietnam and start implemented up to city. Non-government organization, international and local ones, and some the other. Yeah. Limitation and change of the social enterprise in Vietnam. The high risk of the bankruptcy due to the fragmented lack of business management skill. The second is not only bright shy. Yes, social enterprise technologies have the limitation. And the first, the challenge ensure the profiteers with the lacking of the social mission provides real challenges for the startup. The second, many cases take advantage of the disaster, the ability to the donation. This leads to loss of resources in the community. The third, contribution of the SUEs to GDP is low, simple products and the services using lithium technology high price. That's the fourth and the fifth. That is the limitation and the changes of the social enterprise in Vietnam. So if country is a mega social enterprise, every benefit tax, social value, and surplus are reinvested for its society. Yeah, then as a micro practically level, if each enterprise be the social enterprise. Yeah. There's 10 steps for the Vietnamese biosphere reserve. Case study in Cat Ba Biosphere Reserve, and Professor Colin Campbell introduced very clearly. I introduced the Hai Phong is the third largest city of Vietnam. Is the founded yet 1880s. 2 million people. So that's the main gate of the Sea of the Vietnam, the key transportation hubs of the north and the nation. The urban center of Vietnam, the center of the common tourist industrial service of the north coast and Vietnam. Yeah, you see. Yeah. Cat Ba Biosphere Reserve 2004 UNESCO and Man Biosphere Reserve that on behalf of the leader of Hai Phong City, I received a certificate from the UNESCO. He is the Mr. Han Chung Li. Yeah. Biosphere value. Yeah, you see. 3,883 species of the fauna and flora. Mangrove, primary tropical rainforest, and the Cat Hills, the Cape and Rooted. UNESCO Heritage Site candidates 2000. You see the land. The total, it was just species, the fauna and flora. Marine species, you see. Discover of new species. Tunkilas, yes. Cat Ba Langur, yes. Professor Colin Campbell introduced Cat Ba Langur, the golden head langur, the white head langur, golden head langur, top 25 most endangered primary on over the world. Yes. Cat Ba, species that in Cat Ba that it goes Cat Ba Langur. That Cat Ba is the private name of the Cat Ba Islands. Cat Ba Biosphere and social enterprise cost. You see, yeah. Some potential and the social enterprise for sustainable developments in Cat Ba Biosphere Reserve. Yeah, you see. Cat Ba certificate label, that label from the Cat Ba when received the quality and certificate label is the logo of the Cat Ba Biosphere Research with the symbol of the gold head langur. Cat Ba Langur is in about the amazing rainforest cover. Yeah. So missing. Yeah. Now in the Cat Ba have 25 social enterprise they receive yes symbols of Cat Ba language. Yeah. So I introduce position as a company. Thành Vinh is so special in the Cat Ba. The 3R, GU, reduce, recycle. Yeah, very important. Yeah. Now in Vietnam, in some enterprise, they have the 4R, GU, reduce, recycle, refuel. Okay. Refuel if the technology is the backward and the pollution, and they refuse use. That's the possession. Yeah. Xuân Đán, it's a new reason. Yeah. Because a little bit time I introduce fast. Summary. Research adopt application of the 12 principles of the ecosystem management in the plan and social making for development include social enterprise. The first social choice to set out objectives for management of soil, water, and biological resources. The second, appropriate development management on the basis of the planting first, development less, planting first, invest less, adapt to nature ecology law, very important. Yeah. In some cases, no plan, develop, just so can you have to correct, they are very dangerous. The third, the manager need to consider if the action has the impact of the surrounding ecosystem. That's the first need to understand ecosystem in the particular context to make adaptive policy advice. That's the fifth, conserve function structures of the ecosystem to maintain eco service and goods. 6, 7 equals approach sociability to process space in time and time. 8, management objectives should be alongside for the ecosystem. 9, accept change is inevitable in the management. 10, yes, 11, 12 ecosystem approach needs involved of the social force of the research units. Yeah. That's the orientation for the social enterprise developed in Vietnam. Vietnam has much potential and condition for the social enterprise development in many sectors and industries, ensuring security, social welfare, and the safety indicator, new rural program, and social development. The third, to start up the social enterprise need to innovative idea on the real needs to goods and services that are profitable, but also services other needs to production, livelihood of the society, and the community to invest at least 51% of the surplus for society. And the fourth of success of the HEs need to always good ideas, but require knowledge, skill, apply new technologies in production and business and a suitable enabling environment. And the sixth, SE initiative should of the notice from the aim and the recovery interest of the national identities and the values of the livelihoods, culture, and the environment. The sector for rural house, yes, should be changing the spot of the chain to new sweet rock, to turning themselves into agriculture, into freelance. The 7, business to raise quality standard to them the custom. The 8, need to remove difficult to capital in the business scheme, increasing competitiveness in the general and the social enterprise in the particular for the create linked products. That's the SE manage the farmer in Vietnam. Yes, thank you for your attention.
Yeah, very sorry about that. Well, thank you, and I think I would have to say that it was exceptional in terms of being able to come to Scotland and give a presentation to a country that's already developed, and certainly I could not go and give a presentation in Vietnamese, so thank you very much, Professor Than. Chief Executive of an organisation called First Port, and Josiah is a serial social entrepreneur. He's somebody who has run social enterprises himself, so he understands very intimately the challenges of setting up and running an organisation that has to make a profit but also deliver social and environmental impact. So, Josiah.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Scotland, to everybody who hasn't heard that already. So Colin asked me to talk about money today, which is always an important part of running a social enterprise, and we often shy away from talking about it. First Port, to talk about money, I thought it's best to give a bit of context for what First Port does and where our role is within the ecosystem of social enterprise. We don't see all of social enterprise, but a particular aspect of that. So we work with new ideas and at various stages on that journey. So we run a number of economic development projects in small communities who have been left behind, one of which is in the Galloway and Ayrshire Biosphere Reserve. Don't know if anybody's been there. What if? And that's really about helping people find that idea that's in their heads that they've always thought was a good idea to do it, and how do we use enterprise as a way to address issues locally. They don't always become social enterprises, but in some communities creating employment has some social benefit. Then we run a number of programs around having people build on that, and that's helping them with oversee various grant funds like the Social Entrepreneurs Fund and the Scottish Government, along with business support to help them use that money well. And then we also run the only program in the UK currently where we translate what an investor syndicate does into social enterprise, where we take the social and financial capital of private investors and try to execute that in a social enterprise space. Which is quite interesting because you don't just get money, it's about smart money where you get that person's experience and knowledge and social capital as well. So talk a little bit about what that looks like, but who does First Port see? Quite interesting. A lot of times we're seeing people while their idea is still in infancy, so we don't know what they want to what they will end up as. Although the primary, so last year we worked with over 1,100 ideas, 1,103. That shows the potential scale of how social enterprise is growing in Scotland. Between the stat that I've been giving the past couple of weeks is between 2007 and 2017, First Port worked with just over 5,000 ideas, around 5,300 ideas. In the calendar year 2017, 1,103 ideas came through, and we're already seeing 15% more of that in this current year than we did even last year. So the rate at which people are wanting to start new social enterprise ideas is growing exponentially year on year, and it's a big issue we have to deal with of how do we respond to support that as an entire ecosystem. So that means every day we're seeing actually now more than 3 new ideas come through our doors, which is a huge number. We work with people often before their idea becomes a thing, and using the code that Aidan talked about, roughly 70% of what comes through our doors end up being social enterprises or growing social enterprises. But 15% stay private businesses. Now, the one caveat to that is that often is people who their idea doesn't grow to the extent where it becomes a legal organization. So they may be self-employed or sole proprietor, often in rural communities, where there's not the community to actually build an organization. And 10% end up just being charities. It's not a business idea, but it is still doing good, which is okay. And 5%, as anything in startup, never actually get started. They get help to start, and then it doesn't become a thing. But it's quite an interesting breakdown to see how most are becoming social enterprises, but various contexts mean that isn't the case. So what kind of investment is out there? So as First Port, we oversee quite a bit of other people's money to help it go out. A big chunk of that is Scottish Government money. Some is private business money to help seed and start some of those early ideas. So on the seed grant side, we oversee the Social Entrepreneurs Fund, and that's really to help people start and then take that first step into going full time with it. That stage between I have an idea, I'm testing it out, to leaving behind whatever job they were doing before starting it. It's quite interesting. We run 2 micro grant programs where it's Pounds for Purpose is for young people who have an idea and have never been given permission to test it out. It's £500, go try it. If it goes well, we will help you build it and grow. If it fails, we will help you fail well, so next time you do well. And what if, this is our rural community one, like we have in the biosphere, it's really about helping those communities test the ideas. And we also run the social innovation competition, which is finding the most innovative ideas. That one we run it with the Scottish Government as well. On the other side, grants are great, but no organization, particularly the social enterprise, can rely on grants for their entire life. If it just relies on grants, it's really just a charity in the end of the day. That's all it is. most businesses need some sort of capital to keep growing. And so the main options available in Scotland are loan-based. Conventional loans from a conventional bank like RBS, social investment loans. Social Investment Scotland is the largest, but there is also a few others, Big Issue Invest, Resilient. Direct loans from investors, I'll get onto that in a bit because I know that's one thing that a lot of people are interested in. And community shares, where the community themselves put money behind the business to help it grow. So the important thing within this is it's not about getting whatever money you can find, but about finding the right money at the right time that's smart. Just taking money because it's money is never a good idea unless it's the right size and at the right time. And although we have quite a good investment, both grant and loan ecosystem, there are still major gaps for where that support should come in, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So first part on our Launch Me program, which is our high growth program where we work with private investors. Some quite interesting numbers in here. We have a mechanism in Britain that's relatively new that allows private investors who traditionally would have given to a high growth business in the private business space to put money in. And we ran this program for 4 years, working with 22 businesses, 13 of which went on to get money. And I think what's really interesting about this is it shows how it's taken a combination of that private investor who understands social benefit and wanting to put that in with institutional investors, but also the grant element and co-investment. It's no different than a private business who often gets some subsidy from the government or from an economic agency. But those 13 businesses within social enterprise were able to raise right around £2 million in a conventional space, which is the first of its kind in Britain. You know, for £1 million to come from private investors in without taking equity into social enterprises is a huge thing for Scotland and Britain as a whole. And quite interesting there. And a really good breakdown of one of these. I'll give you a practical example. So Leslie here from Class Care, she runs a childcare business. One of the big things we're doing in Scotland is we're trying to increase the spaces for young people to enter nursery throughout, but we don't have the infrastructure necessarily to meet the government's encouraged requirements to do this or the investment. And so Leslie set up a separate from the state childcare company to help meet flexible working demands of parents, because often parents are stuck. I mean, I have a 6-year-old, and when he was in nursery, because of the hours that nursery operated, it restricted when both myself and my wife could work. What Leslie's trying to do is help families that have to work get around that. So by getting this investment, she raised £170,000, again, a cocktail of investors. She was able to buy an asset, which allowed her to not just set up this childcare company and have or grow this childcare company and have a space for it, but also to create a community hub where it's working not just during the daytime for the childcare, but also to run community activities and things around. Quite an interesting space, and she's growing every day, and she's looking at doing 2 or 3 new sites. And there are, again, lots of other examples where there's been that mix, but again, it came back to the right time and the right investors to come in and do it. But it's not all, so I've been rushing through this, I'm trying to catch us up on time a bit. But it's not all good. There is a lot of great stuff going on, but the demand is high. If you see those 1,100 businesses coming in, if they all wanted social investment, there's not enough money out there. One of the things that we all struggle with is because of the history and where social enterprise came from, at times there's still a culture of fear around taking on investment. So moving away from grant funding from that traditional third sector approach into getting different kinds of money. There's a bit we have to do about cultivating the okayness. There's very few businesses in the world who haven't taken on some sort of loan at some point in their life. Making it okay for social enterprises to do that and not just rely on grants or bootstrap it is the thing. There's not enough small money out there. It's something we have a lot of conversations about. There's great money out there to help businesses grow to a certain size, but the appropriate scale for a business is not always the same. It's not always to become national or international. Sometimes it's just to be the right scale for that community. And they need a different kind of money that's small enough to meet their small demand, but not necessarily to just grow exponentially. Certain sectors, due to money, cannot really exist in social enterprise. A bit of a controversial thing. But technology companies and life sciences often have an aspiration to start out in the social enterprise, but because of the amount of pre-start capital they need, often 100, 200, 300 million pounds of investment, they can't get that from the traditional social investment spaces. And we see, particularly at First Port, a lot of businesses coming to us not able to receive the money and having to become private companies simply because they can't access it. Something Colin's struggling with himself back there. And there's no follow-on investment yet. So we have a lot of these people who will come in and do social investment. They'll get that first scalable thing, but 3 years down the line, when those loans come to the end of it, there's not yet a vehicle to buy that out and give another stage of investment. Doesn't exist. There's a few people working on it. Triodos is potentially going to do that. But despite those negative things, we do have a supportive financial space here, and there are ways for them to grow, but we have a long way to go. Did I do it in 10 minutes? Good. All right, if you have any questions, just as a caveat, although I did talk a lot about money, First Port isn't just about money. Only about 2/3 of the people of the 1,100 got money from us. The rest is quite supportive business support to help people use that money well and figure out if they need it, because not everybody needs it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Douglas Westwater, who is the Chief Executive of Community Enterprise.
Okay, I'll try and stick to my 10 minutes and go under that if possible. Josiah was asked to talk about money, and I just wanted really to speak, mostly what I'm talking about today is around support and business support and the infrastructure around business support. And I think certainly our perspective as community enterprise is that traditionally consultants are viewed as pretty horrible people, experts flying into an organisation and helping out, and funders generally quite hard to deal with. Our view really is that to see really brilliant things flourish, when it works best is when you've got a really engaged funder who absolutely understand the idea, a support organisation like ourselves who absolutely get involved in the idea and give that business support, and the local or the thematic idea who's got that passionate idea, and bringing those three things together makes really good things happen. It's very hard to have an idea without the support there. It's very hard to do it without money, and people with money and support are largely out of a job without passionate ideas. And those three things working together, certainly in the 14 years I've been with this organisation, we've seen astonishing things happen in Scotland when you bring those three things together. In Scotland, there is an ecosystem of support that has grown quite organically over the last 20 years that Colin spoke about. Now, this does look a little bit complicated, but what we're beginning to try to do is to pull this together into something that's a little more coherent. So you'll see here, there's a bigger version here that you can have a look at. So I'm talking a little around business support that we're providing. Josiah's talked about funding. Aidan talked around networking and bringing people together. There's also learning and training. So this ecosystem in Scotland is trying to bring together and dovetail business support, good funding, learning and networking, as well as that policy framework that both Pauline and Aidan and Kim are involved in, and trying to bring this together into a coordinated whole from the disparate organic way it's come together is one of the things we're beginning to try to work with, so that social enterprises on the ground can access that support, funding, networking and learning a little more easily. So a couple of final things. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about ourselves, Community Enterprise. You'll see this better in the slides when they're circulated. But our vision up here is that fundamentally Community Enterprise is working towards a society where places are vibrant and people feel good about their lives. So it's not about providing a good business plan or a funding strategy or a marketing strategy, but fundamentally we are a tool, a bridge to bring people with ideas who may be struggling and help them to implement those ideas. And so that's the kind of work that we do, is about giving people precise business support, a bit of marketing, some learning, some training, to take them from their idea and actually making it a reality. And I suppose what we often say to our clients is, if you've got a really exciting idea that you come to us with, and you want to be over here running that idea and developing your nursery or your childcare or your forest or whatever it is, we do all the really boring stuff in between. the funding, the business plan, the investment plan, all that tedious stuff in between, but it's necessary to get people from their idea to making it a reality. Very briefly, you'll see this when you have more chance to have a look at it. This is the nature of our organisation. We are part of that ecosystem, but we're also beyond that. We do a whole load of other things out with that structural ecosystem based on community enterprise and developing people's organisations. To finish off with, I wanted just to give you a few ideas of examples of the organisations that we work with. So as Josiah said, there is a real range of social enterprises in Scotland, from very big multi-million pounds contractual organisations, big charities that are beginning to be enterprises, very small entrepreneurs who often become sole traders, as Josiah said, because they don't move towards being social enterprises, a big spectrum of different kinds of social enterprises. Now, we do touch on all of those at one kind or another, but the majority of the social enterprises that we support are at a community level. So they are finding ways to develop social impact in their communities, and then out of that have to find enterprising ways to sustain what they're doing. So I wanted just to finish off by giving you 3 examples of organisations that we have worked with. This organisation is basically what used to be referred to as pretty much a men's shed. So they were a group of older people. Most of those men now are in their 70s and 80s, and they were lonely and isolated. They were retired. They were looking for something to do. They were struggling to do that. They've spent the last 18 years building a replica World War I aircraft that has just been certificated in the last 2 weeks. So it can fly, it can go to air shows. They built it themselves from tiny wee bits of components. And they came to us really saying, now that we've done that and we have this beautiful thing that's airworthy, we have no money and we can't run it. It's very expensive to insure, it's very expensive to run, it's very expensive to own. So having worked on it for nearly 20 years, we're almost certainly going to have to sell it. And there's a whole range of buyers across the globe who want to buy it from us. But we're probably going to have to sell it to keep doing what we're doing. So we supported them to develop a business plan around becoming more enterprising. They'd never traded before. So they're going to use that plane to do weddings and events, very expensive flying shows. They are potentially able to give people lessons within that plane if we can go over the health and safety issues. So they're now looking at this year at developing that as a business. So they keep ownership of that plane, they can sustain it, and they're investing in the next aeroplane that they're going to build. The second example was a group who we are working with up in the Shetlands. Some of you might be aware of the festival there called Up Heliah, where they basically meet in October. All local communities around the islands construct a boat between October and February, and then in February they launch the boat and set it on fire. And it goes back to times when the Vikings had funerals on these boats and their kings were placed on the boats. And so what the idea of these guys had to fund this activity, which has cultural and social impact importance, was to develop funerals, Viking funerals. They have established a significant demand, particularly from America, who people want to have those funerals. So we have a business plan to develop these Viking funerals. Unfortunately, it's currently illegal. So there are some barriers to developing social enterprises. We do have a little impediment there that we need to overcome, but interesting nonetheless. And then finally, this is an organisation that we've started to work with who actually didn't know they were a social enterprise, but they've been running this holiday caravan site up in the northeast since 1928, and quietly developing that as a business and reinvesting back into the community. And really all that ecosystem and policy and the code that Aidan talked about and the investment, they're totally out of the loop. They've been doing this since 1928 and reinvesting back into their communities. So there are hidden gems all over Scotland that I think are just part of that quiet going around in terms of sustainability. So hopefully that gives you a feel about the bigger ecosystem, kind of work that we do, and some examples.
Okay, I'd like to ask Pauline Graham-Gordon to join us. Pauline has been a real stalwart working in the area, well, she's the Chief Executive of Social Firms Scotland, but she's also been very active in introducing and maintaining a place for social enterprise within the whole discussion in government around sustainable public procurement. So I can't think of anybody better to give us an introduction to the work that she's been doing, because it's an opportunity for government to help support build marketplaces for social enterprise. Chloe, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me to come and speak to you. So, as Colin says, I work for Social Firms Scotland, and just very briefly, because we have 10 minutes, I'm going to try and talk even faster than Douglas. Social Firms Scotland is part of the ecosystem of support, and we focus on supporting social firms, or what we call work integration social enterprises. So any social enterprise that has employability of disadvantaged groups as their mission. So we support people who have very low rates of employment, people with a disability, mental ill health, substance misuse, people who have been in prison or have a criminal record, and others. And what do? We, a bit like Senscott, we provide information and advice. We provide very tailored business support to our members. We raise the profile of social firms. We represent our members as best we can, and we influence policy. And that's, as Colin said, where I've tried very hard to influence government's public procurement environment and how it's governed, and it's very tightly governed by law. Why is procurement important for social enterprise? Because it's about making them more sustainable, and also on a wider level it's about ensuring that how we spend our money has sustainability at its very heart, and it needs to be socially responsible. So we want more public benefit from how our public agencies spend money and buy goods and services. The backdrop to this is public finances are shrinking, so we need to ensure that we get more bang for our buck, in essence. There's a political will in Scotland, and we have a very supportive government, as many people have said, to procure much more sustainably. We want to deliver value for money, of course, but we also want to ensure that alongside that value for money, we're delivering value for people and value for communities and value for the environment. And EU regulations, which is the legal framework in which public procurement is done in Scotland, at least for the moment, permits the use of social clauses. So that gives us that notion and push towards socially responsible procurement. Scotland is very lucky because we also have had a commitment from government to introduce an act which puts sustainability at the very heart of how we spend our public money. And that's called the Procurement Reform Scotland Act 2014. I'm pleased to say that we have this thing called the Scottish Model Procurement, which does actually have sustainability at its very heart. And the triangle over there is the Scottish model and how we can describe it. Procurement in Scotland was reviewed in 2006, and the result of that review was that public procurement isn't very good, and it's certainly not as socially responsible as it could be, and it is now a lot better. Policy is a lot better, and I think practice and behaviours are a lot better as well, and that's good for the social enterprise community. So the Scottish model is that it does support sustainable development goals, so it addresses issues of equality, poverty, climate change, and many others. It seeks for the first time in that triangle to look at value for money, but having value for money with the best balance of cost, quality, and sustainability. That's very important. It has much more focus on outcomes rather than outputs. So again, we want to use the power of public spend to deliver genuine public value, and that's within the values of our social enterprise community as well. And the last point is about how we've become to this better place around the Scottish model procurement, and that has involved working with the government on influencing the best socially responsible procurement that we can have. So the Act was introduced in 2014 and it provided a new national framework for sustainable procurement. It talked very much about social and environmental benefits when you spend public money. It talked about innovation, and it talked about procurement processes being much more streamlined, transparent and accessible for social enterprises and small businesses. And those are all good things. In simple terms, what does that mean? It means that we now use, as part of the Act, we spend our money because we have better use of procurement to promote jobs and training for our people, ensuring that public bodies award major contracts all have community benefits within it. There is a threshold around £4 million, but in reality, community benefits in procurement is much more widely practiced now than it ever has been. It's about smarter use of public procurement to encourage innovation and growth, and there are some duties on public bodies to publish where their contracts go, how much they are, and what they'll be procuring next. And there's an increased cross-sectoral procurement as well. There's also use of lots, so contracts aren't aggregated up so that the big providers win them. There's use of lots so that smaller providers can have better access to winning them. It's also about making it easier for third sector social enterprises and small businesses to access contracts and compete. There's now one single portal for all public contracts in Scotland called Public Contract Scotland, again a very good thing. There's a commitment to engage with the supplier community, and that's great for us because you can have a conversation with public procurement and commissioners who are buying goods and services, and it's about influencing supply chain. It's also about reserving contracts for a particular type of social enterprise called supported businesses who employ 30% of people from disadvantaged categories, and again that's a very good provision to have within your procurement directive. And the last one's about streamlining processes. For me, the biggest thing within the new procurement landscape is this thing called the sustainable procurement duty. It really is at the centre of how we're doing things differently in Scotland. And this puts a duty on every public body who is responsible for procuring goods and services to do three things. One is when they're buying, they have to think about how they can improve the economic, social and environmental well-being of the area in which they are buying services, and also how they can reduce inequalities. So that should be at the forefront of their mind when they're buying anything, desks or services. The second point is they must think about how they buy. So they must think about how they buy and the process around how they procure that has an impact on small and medium enterprises and social enterprises. And the last component is important. It's about promoting innovation, and that's social innovation as well as just generally innovation. Just a word on community benefits. What do these things, community benefits or social clauses, look like when they appear in procurement contracts? They're about employment, so you can have targeted recruitment and training. If you're buying anything, you can put that into your specification, and therefore you're creating jobs as part of your public pound. It's about training and upskilling. It's about work placements. It's about community engagement, thinking about the end user of the service that you're buying. It's about making sure that people know there are supply chain opportunities, and it's very much about education initiatives as well. So measures with schools, further and higher education, and talking to your community in which you're building a new hospital, for example. And just lastly, to touch on a few examples that we've seen in Scotland. On employability, the Commonwealth Games was in Scotland a few years back, and some of the outputs of that were that Glasgow City Council had 330 new entrant jobs. So 330 people from spending money around building infrastructure for the Commonwealth Games created jobs, people that didn't currently have jobs. Energy assistance contract was about addressing fuel poverty, but it also created a number of qualifications for young people around the green economy. the last one was an infrastructure project that created jobs and apprenticeships as well. This one was the kind of first example of a social enterprise winning a business through a public contract where community benefit clauses were featured, and it created 10 employment opportunities within that enterprise, making it much more sustainable in terms of the jobs. But it also gave that social enterprise a track record in delivering for a major contractor in Scotland, and they since went on to win 3 other business opportunities as a result of that. Some other examples here around a very, very big multi-million pound hospital infrastructure project in that great city of Glasgow. And again, lots of small businesses and a few social enterprises won business as a result of that investment. Climate Challenge Fund also made a commitment that whoever won the delivery of that fund had to do awareness raising within communities and within schools, and again that's part of the educational clauses that you can put into contracts. And the last one was about recycling centre, and again commitments around engaging local schools in green issues and developing a visitor centre. Why is all this important? Because it does link to Scotland's national outcomes. So if you're creating jobs, you are impacting on the economic strategy of government. If you're creating apprenticeships, you're giving young people new skills as part of how you spend your public money, and I think that's really important. And the last one for me is equally important. How do we tackle inequalities in our society? And you can do specific measures within contracts that look at targeting some groups and communities that are in deprived areas. In terms of supporting people to implement the good things that are in the procurement and the sustainable procurement duty, there's a suite of guidance that people can now use, and there are all of them are available online. And I think lastly, it has taken a long time to shift behaviours and to get a really good national policy around socially responsible procurement. It does open up opportunities for our sector, but we have a long way to go to get there. Thank you very much.
Thanks. We have Will Tyler Gregg, who's the Head of Social Enterprise, Social Innovation and Social Investment for the Scottish Government. And Will is tasked in delivering the Scottish Social Enterprise Strategy. Let's see if the technology works.
So thank you so much for joining us. That's the wrong one, but that's okay. I'll take care of that. I think that's just the wrong link.
Okay.
So I wanted to show you the closing ceremony video for the Social Enterprise World Forum, which was held in Edinburgh in September. And I hope there's audio.
We think so, it's connected, but we've not tried using it, to be honest.
Well, whilst these pictures flash up with whiskey, yeah, we all know what that is, and tartan and bagpipes, yeah. These are all the things that I guess historically Scotland sells itself on, the history of Scotland, the very fabric of society. But Scotland is also a modern, forward-facing economy, and as part of that vision of creating a modern economy, the Scottish Government puts social enterprise centrally to that mission, which I think is different perhaps than some other countries. Scotland's considered to be one of, I guess, the top 3 social enterprise nations in the world, and we pride ourselves on that. And I think you have heard from my fellow speakers that the mission is now to keep the momentum high and to not let that drop. And so Scotland has a brand new 10-year social enterprise strategy, and we also carry out a census every year. So I will put some of these around the tables. A census every 2 years. So we have 5,600 social enterprises in Scotland, and they operate in a range of sectors. We have worked very closely with the third sector, the charity sector and voluntary sector to co-create our new 10-year vision. And that work is very much a ground-up activity. So the Scottish Government stepped back, said we don't have all the answers, we don't have all the data, we don't have the solutions, which is evident because we're still in a situation where inequality is increasing and we still haven't been able to create something that's a fair society, as much as that is our mission. And so we stepped back and let the social entrepreneurs come in, like Josiah, who now looks after First Sport, and other support organisations, and co-created our new 10-year strategy. The 10-year strategy focuses on three things: Haley dancing, whiskey, and entrepreneurship. So we have a schools programme. We've got a commitment to get social enterprise into every school in Scotland over the next 10 years. So we are creating a next generation of social entrepreneurs. 2, building stronger organisations where they exist. So we give free business support, we give free membership to national representative bodies, and we ensure that the right sort of money is there. So we talked a little bit about the money. The right money, the right price, and the right way of giving that money. So is it debt? Is it a community share? Is it matched trading, where we give £1 for every £1 that's traded, we match it? There's lots of different ways to get money in to grow a business. And lastly, to get those businesses to market. So we focus on 3 markets: the business-to-business market, which is all your supply chain activity. We talked a bit about procurement, the importance of that. We look at consumer markets, so we have a ASDA Academy partnership, which is about getting product-facing social enterprises into supermarkets to try and sell at scale across the UK and internationally. And lastly, the public sector markets. So the Scottish Government spends 11, 12 billion each year on public services, and we want social enterprise to be able to take a bit of that pie as well. So what's important with the Scottish Government's perspective is that we don't look at this just from a community's remit. So the Vice Minister and I were talking a bit about his portfolio is in security. The UK Government is now in Department for Culture, Media and Sport. It looks after social enterprise, and the Scottish Government's within communities. The governments that make it work are those that look across all portfolios and get all ministers to think about social enterprise opportunities in their area. So it's justice, it's about social enterprises trying to reduce reoffending, perhaps through employability programs. In the environment, it's about reduce, reuse, refuel, or whatever variety. And yeah, so each one of these sectors, each one of these ministerial portfolios, you want your cabinet and your ministers to think about social enterprise as a way of delivering against their policy objectives. And that's crucial. That's what's been happening in Scotland. I think that will be the game changer over the next 10 years, is to ensure that ministers continue to see the value of social enterprise in their policy areas. So we've had the World Forum last year, so we're now looking forward to visiting Ethiopia, where it's held next year. And I think we were talking a little bit about Vietnam potentially being a future host. And I think all the Scottish delegates are very much looking forward to coming visiting when that comes to fruition. So I'm not going to say very much more. I think you've all heard enough. And the translator is sort of slowing down. I think perhaps now is just to have an open conversation. And thank you once again for coming to Scotland. Thank you.
Okay, we did say that we were going to have an opportunity for questions and discussion. We can take 2 or 3 comments. We have some guests down the back from Napier University, some students as well who are here, so feel free to ask some questions if you have anything. Yes. Can you tell us who you are and what you're studying? Stand up, yeah, shout.
Hello, my name is Ifoma. I'm currently studying my MBA here at Napier. My question is really about investment and also the kind of relationship you're seeing private and profit-driven companies have with you as social enterprises in Scotland. Are you seeing them becoming more socially conscious and interested in becoming more impactful?
So who wants to answer that challenging question? Yeah, so the question is, through the development of social enterprise and perhaps in the area of investment, are we seeing private sector organisations moving towards becoming more socially aware and conscious?
I think obviously they are, as you will know, of course. So CSR was kind of back then. Now they're thinking about social enterprises coming into supply chains. The question is whether social enterprise is a role model for those types of organisations, and are those big corporates seriously thinking about converting their business model? So is Twitter going to become cooperative? Probably not. Would it be better organisations that have been set up as cooperative? I think people probably see that it would now. Now that we see where it's gone to and what sort of revenue streams it has. And then you have other larger organisations like Danone and others that are becoming B Corp and signing up to mission-led. So they're evidencing their social impact perhaps more than they had in the past. And the reason why that's happening is because social investors are increasingly driven by a social return on investment, and not just your traditional return.
I think there's probably two answers from my perspective on that conversation. This is my perspective. You do have a lot of private companies starting to ask and move closer to social enterprise. And I think there's that big question about whether CSR and procurement are the only routes to that. There was a really good, to quote other people at the World Forum, there was a debate about this specifically at the World Forum, and you had two companies talking about CSR as their way of doing social benefit, one talking about procurement, and then you had a fourth person on the panel was a large multi-million pounds recruitment firm who saw it, I'll just become a social enterprise. They, of course, define that themselves, but they put profit caps and ratio, highest paid, lowest paid ratio in, and then profit disbursement to all its employees. But that's an example where they said, well, CSR procurement isn't the only way of doing this, we can just change ourselves. And I think we'll start to see more of that. I think the question is how social enterprise helps guide that conversation. We've been doing it for a long time, and how we can find that middle space, because the answer for the economy is probably in the dialogue between social enterprise and that.
A couple of responses here. Yeah, Aidan first.
I think there's a big issue that is going to be an increasingly difficult issue for the social enterprise community. I think some of the people coming in from the big corporates, I think some of it is can be genuine, but I think some of it's a kind of social fig leaf, and I think it's attracting a lot of attention just now. But the issue we really face is that if you imagine the iceberg idea, the bulk of the iceberg is beneath the surface, and that's where we feel the support's got to go. And these corporates coming in want to go for that wee bit above the iceberg. So we've got to, no harm in having dialogue, it's positive, it should be encouraged, but not to confuse it with social enterprise.
Pauline?
Where I've seen it most positively is in the construction companies, the big construction companies who don't talk about CSR anymore. It makes good business sense that they have that they spend and deliver socially responsibly, and they measure the impact of that. But that doesn't mean, and they want to engage with their sector a lot better, but it doesn't mean to say that they want to become a social enterprise. That doesn't enter their minds. They just want to be a good business, and they want to evidence that they are delivering responsibly, and that's fine with me.
Thank you. That was an excellent question. Yeah, we have another question. Introduce yourself. Yeah.
My name is Alvina. I'm also doing the same course, MBA Leadership Practice. So actually, my dream is to start up a social entrepreneurship company to help the orphans. Orphans, in the sense, not only the materialistic substance. It's like emotionally who are orphans, like single parent and parents who doesn't take care of their children properly. So I want to help those kind of children. So I got an idea from I don't know his name.
Douglas.
Actually, yeah, okay. Sorry, I forgot your name. The support and money ideas, three needs to work together. I really impressed by your idea. Really, I want to work out on that. So, how do you suggest me that how to get the support, money, and idea working together for my startup?
I mean, I think in some ways it is difficult. That's partly why this map that we're beginning to try to look for is to pull that together, because there is lots of money around, there's lots of support around, and there's certainly my experience, there's lots and lots of good ideas around, but they have until quite recently been quite isolated. And actually I think what we need to be better as a sector is to pull that together. We had a meeting on Friday morning with some people in our sector and we talked about how to work together, and somebody actually said, well, maybe we need a collaborative strategy. So actually I think it's an ongoing discussion ourselves. We need to be really better at working better together ourselves, but second, at communicating that with people like yourself so that you can easily find out where the money is, where the support is, and how to maximise your idea without spending a year running around speaking to the wrong people. As Josiah says, just phone us and we'll work it out.
And I think the very short answer is that we can help you with this right at the beginning in the university, which is why we exist. But the point is that we can then help to connect you out around the ecosystem as best we can, and at the right point find the right people for you to speak to. So stick with us, Alfina.
May I introduce, my name is I'm from Vietnam. Mr. Thanh, Professor Thanh. There are some questions I want to ask for some advice. Because to start the SM, the social enterprise in European country like Vietnam, there are some big, I think it's the problem for starting a business like SE, because the big challenge with the SE company in Vietnam is the capital and the experiences. Because most people, they start a business SE in Vietnam, they are the farmer and they are lack experiences and capital. So there are some challenges like that. So I want to ask you, can you give us some advice about how we can develop the SD in Vietnam?
Okay. So the question is, in a country which is trying to support the development of social enterprise, quite rural to some extent. Many people, when they start their businesses, it's within a family. So how can Vietnam support the development of the social enterprise sector? Where do you get the finance and where do you get the experience? So I think Abe was a good person to try and respond to that.
One of the issues is we've had a culture for decades where government, national and local, has supported activity in communities. And that goes back 50, 60 years. So there's always been that culture and that tradition. So we've tried to explain today that the government in the last 10 years has specifically been investing in the development and growth of social enterprises. So if you don't have that, you're really looking for private money, or you're looking for initiatives like a community shares idea perhaps. But if you don't have the tradition, I mean, the question I was going to ask myself was, what investment does the Vietnamese government put into social and community enterprise? We have that happening here just now, and we've heard different ways of doing it. But if you took the government money away, you have a similar problem here.
And I'd like to answer as well. I think that one of the things that we have in Scotland is the fact that we have connected social enterprises. So it's very difficult to develop and establish a business if you are isolated. So one of the things that Scott has done over the years is to build clusters of social enterprises who learn from each other. And through that, we got responses from them about what support they needed from policy. So the policy was influenced by social enterprises on the ground. One of the things that Professor Phan talked about is the Social Enterprise and Biosphere Reserve strategy that Vietnam is taking forward as the first country in the world to do that. And one of the intentions there is to identify social enterprises and bring them together. And I think that is something that if you were to replicate, it speeds up the process of learning and innovation, and it reduces isolation, which is absolutely critical. So I think that's something else that it would be worthwhile looking at.
Yes, and one more question, because the people who are starting a business is a social enterprise, they are
farmers.
Is something like that. And they don't have the experience, and they don't have knowledge. They have only idea.
Yeah.
But in Vietnam, they are not don't have any organization who can give them the advice, especially if the experiences is from the brain is the people who have the much experience in doing business and has experience from the business. That is very important for the people who start the business like that.
Yeah, well, I would also answer, in fact, I'd invite my colleague Tabby to tell you about the work that we did through the Oasis platform, where we joined people not only locally, but internationally.
So, yeah, the Oasis platform, which Kappa and Biosphere Reserve is a member of and has about 9 businesses registered on. We have run several events bringing entrepreneurs together across this international network who are also registered on the online platform. In Italy, we took enterprises from Scotland, from Wales, from Sweden, and brought them over to Italy and introduced them to a whole network of entrepreneurs in Italy, social entrepreneurs in Italy. And they were able to then exchange ideas and actually form the partnerships. And we have several kind of results which came out from that. There's a honey network that's been established. So social enterprises which produce honey have kind of joined and are now running kind of grant applications to European grants. So they're trying to get more support to extend their network of honey producers across the Mediterranean. And they also kind of exchanged honey to be sold in Sweden. So we had Italian honey consumed and sold in Sweden. So that's kind of a small example of how actually bringing enterprises together across an international context can actually create these new channels of business and new partnerships and new knowledge that's existing. And a lot of them didn't realise that they were social enterprises at all. And really internationally, it's not really about the term, it's just about connecting people trying to do really good things and exchange.
And one particular example about rural farmers who perhaps don't have the experience is a project that we did in Ghana, in a very rural biosphere reserve, and one of the Italian social enterprises that runs a hotel, a rural hotel, but also products, they've got experience in honey. And we got them to do a workshop, which was recorded and then played in Ghana to the honey producers over there. And one of the outcomes of that project is the opportunity for the Ghanaians to sell their honey in Australia. So it's about using international experience as well.
Just to respond to your question, I think there are different practices in Asia, like AVPN, Asia Venture Philanthropy Network, marketing. So I can put you in touch. That's one connection. Another connection is the recent practice we had with Malaysia. So the lady come from Westminster. Now she resigned from Westminster. She fully promoted social enterprise in Asia. So I can put you in touch with her. Jan. So she's based in Malaysia right now. And then there's another connection there as well. So just I can talk to you about more about Rotary, yeah, Asia. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, well, I think we. Oh, yeah.
So there's a question. Just in Vietnam, the case studies in the biosphere research for the social enterprise. So, but I think the rule and the other, the best ways under the laws that of the state and the strategies should be have the clear indicator for the business and the management. That easy to understand, easy to do, easy to know. Yes, I think this is a big question for the leader and management.
Yeah, exactly. So the indicators and the performance of the delivery, whether or not they're delivering sustainable development or not, is, I completely agree. Social impact evaluation is critical that we get this clear, and it's an area that we've been challenged with globally. So on that note of agreement, one of the things I wanted to say in final words is I found it fascinating the number of times that we in Scotland have realised that these new ideas, actually people come up against the same challenges, the same issues time and time again. And we heard that also from Professor Than's presentation, that the challenges are similar, even although the context is very different. I thought it was thought-provoking in the fact that we also heard about the fourth industrial revolution. That is something that I think that in Scotland, and in particularly in the social enterprise sector, we really need to get to grips with, is the change in technology and the impact that that is going to have in jobs. So I certainly welcome that input. And the second thing that I learnt from Vietnam is all about the systems thinking, that it's not enough to do things in pockets, in silos. We have to do something across the board, and we need to support the communities in order to deliver. So thank you very much. We certainly enjoyed your presentation. I'd like to thank also the presenters from Scotland for their input, and the students as well for coming along. I hope that our Vietnamese delegates have learnt something, but we want to continue that conversation. We will give you the videos once they've been edited, and only the good bits are in it. And the presentations as well you can take home. But just to finish, we're going to do a picture, but Professor Than has asked to, he would like to present Nick from Napier University with a small present, and thanks for hosting this conference today.
This is one of the oldest lighthouse in Vietnam. Yes, our Uncle Ho, the leader of our nation, he to consider it is pearl eye of the marine, of the sea.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
That's amazing. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. It's very kind.